Pawn shop workers of Reddit. What is the dumbest thing a customer has brought in thinking they were gonna strike it rich? A thief stole our heavy-duty snowblower out of the garage in early July during a heat wave and took it to local pawn shop, hoping to fetch a big price for it. After the police called to say they had located it, the pawn shop owner said the guy just couldn't understand why there wouldn't be a hot market for an expensive snowblower year-round. A kid from my school had a letter signed by Abraham Lincoln. He brought it to show and tell one day, and we were all super impressed. In grade 12, he stole it from his dad and went to pawn it. He bragged about how he was going to be rich. It turns out his grandfather forged the letter and gave it to his dad as a gift. Watching Antiques Roadshow a couple of years back, a woman came in to get her old lamp appraised. The show's appraiser took the lamp, said something along the lines of, "Wow, priceless Ming vase." He then proceeded to remove the whole lamp section from the base, threw it away and said, "Unfortunately somebody decided to make it a lamp and drilled a hole in the bottom, rendering the priceless Ming vase worthless." I've never seen anybody go from okay to just hit the lottery to somebody just flushed my lottery ticket down the toilet in such a short space of time. Now is my time to shine. I am a store manager at one of the busiest pawn shops in Northern California. And because of that I have the high volume of customers that most don't, so that means lots of stories. 1. A guy brought in a stone painted green, claiming it was ancient gold, and that after eons it had developed a patina. I tried to explain to him that all gold is ancient gold, made in something as intense as dead stark lighting, but he insisted it was gold. After about 30 minutes of discussion he forced me to test it, and when I showed him it wasn't gold, he told me he spent $4,000 buying it off some guy. 2. A guy brought in a bag of used syringes and wanted to trade it for a TV. I did not oblige. 3. A guy brought in a piece of safety glass from a windshield and claimed it was a diamond, even when I assured him it wasn't. 4. Someone brought in a clump of bent and slightly melted forks and spoons, claiming it was a meteorite fallen from the ice trash dump shot into space. 5. Someone brought in a costume cape claiming it was the real invisibility cloak from Harry Potter. With further questioning he didn't think it was a prop from the movie, but the actual magical cape. 6. As a watch guy this is my favorite. Someone brought in a Rolex watch claiming their father gave it to them. When I showed her that it actually said Rollex and Skismade, she claimed that those were misprints and meant it was worth more because of it. After I opened the watch to show her the movement, I saw that there was no movement at all, but just a weight in the back. 7. A couple came in with an old 1990 30-inch TV, claiming that it was antique, and refused to leave the store until we gave them $800 for it. We showed them selling online for literally a couple of dollars, but they refused and said they know what they had. 8. Not in line with crazy item, but a good story. A couple used to come in once a week and pawn stuff. Well, apparently one day the wife decided she was done with him as a husband, snuck up behind him in the store, sprayed him in the face with pepper spray, stole his car keys and his wallet, ran out of the store and stole his car. 9. Someone came in with an obviously recently used dialysis machine, still had blood sprayed on it, like they ripped it away while it was in use, I don't know, and tried to sell it for thousands of dollars. We passed. If you guys would like I can do an AMA. If I get enough people interested I would love to share more stories. Had a guy try get $100 for 2 wheat pennies and 2 buffalo nickels, 4-legged. About 5 years ago, I had a guy call the store and ask if we took GPSs. I told him we did. Then he asked the address to the store. I told him. Then he asked me how to get there. One time this guy brought in a chair he said Lincoln sat in. I called my Lincoln chair guy, and he said it was fake. There was a buy and sell by my house that would give you $5 for any game, and sell every game for 10. I used to go in and check prices on all games, and if I would make more than 10 from GameStop I would buy the game, go to GameStop and sell it, and then buy all the crappy games GameStop had that were less than $5, and take it back to the buy and sell to make more money. I was a heroin addict at the time, so that was my job when I wasn't working at the restaurant. Comic book shop employee. Every single seller has a totally mint collection. And a first appearance of Superman or Batman. There have been literally hundreds of Batman/Superman #1s printed over the years. Every time they reboot a series, it starts at issue #1. The people who were polite about it, I didn't mind. The people who thought we were trying to rip them off and that their books were priceless, just did my head in. I didn't work at a pawn shop, but a second-hand movie, music, video game, comic, toy store in KC called Vintage Stock. Games, everyone knows this one. People would buy a game at GameStop and come in a couple of weeks later and expect us to give them $40 cash or $55 in trade-in for a $60 that tanked. Or people would try and sell us a 5-year-old Madden game and be insulted at the 25-cent trade-in we offered for a game we knew was going to sit on our shelf. My favorite was the woman who bought 10 copies of FF7 Greatest Hits and thought we would pay $100 for each one. Sure, if you brought in Suikoden 2 or Luna, we might offer you a nice chunk of change, but if it got a Greatest Hits release, not so much. Comics and toys, every father regretted not keeping his Action Comics one, and every mother lamented not having the original Barbie, but in the late 80s and 90s, they started mass producing that shit. 15-year-old comics and toys have almost no value. Death of Superman and your 100 Beanie Babies are not worth our time. Sports paraphernalia, unless you can prove Joe Montana signed that football, or George Brett signed that card, we can't take it, at least for what you are asking. The Brett Favre rookie card is neat, but why did you use it as a coaster for your coffee mug? A signed hockey stick? Get the duck out. This is Kansas City, we don't know what a hockey stick looks like. Movies and music, in the early to mid zeros, when Netflix mailed you movies and Steam didn't exist, all media was physical. Or downloaded off Kazaa. That didn't mean we would give you $5 for every DVD and $3 for every CD. Nobody wants to buy Yanni's Greatest Hits, and we already have 16 copies of Spider-Man 2. Garage sale moms would come in with trash bags full of random crap and expect to make a living off of it. We would sort through so much crap over the summer because a bored stay-at-home mom thought giving the grandma down the block a check for $20 for every DVD at her sale would net her hundreds of dollars. The big secret, that shouldn't be a secret, is that second-hand stores are still in it to make a profit. If the Beckett Guide says your card is worth $30, we are not going to give you $30. If we can sell your shitty, scratched corn CD for $5, we are going to give you $1.5 cash and $3 trade-in if we are feeling very, very generous. That Star Wars figure might be worth $500 and you only want $300, but if it's going to sit in the display case for a decade, we won't buy it. We want to make money, and if there is no demand, we will lowball you enough that hopefully you leave. Since I left, I heard they went to a standard buy/trade value, but when I worked there it was up to the manager, and the manager at the time kinda let the people who knew about the product determine the price. Yes, I massively undercut the obvious meth head woman who somehow found a copy of Risk for the PS1. Yes, I would buy a bulk bag of Magic cards, because I knew that if we started to price them, they would discover the few ones that are actually worth something. But 95% of the time people that bitched about what we were offering sold us crap that's still sitting in a clearance bin. Worked at a traditional games store. Had plenty of sketchy white trash people coming in with their kids' old Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic cards thinking they're extremely valuable. Usually it was just a mismatched starter set from the early 2000s or the like. I'm not sure what started the idea that old trading cards were going to be ridiculously valuable, but no, I won't give you meth money for your Dark Magician. The level of disappointment, and oftentimes outright anger on their part, was difficult to deal with. I began just telling trashy looking people, who weren't store regulars, that we didn't purchase cards. Did once have a guy bring in a collection that had an ugly looking Black Lotus. Gave him a good deal for it. Not a pawn shop worker, but this is still kind of a cool story, or at least I think. Either way, both the shop owner and I were happy with the events that went down. I used to frequent yard sales, buy vintage items, and then take them to the antiques shop and make a little money on the side. One day, I found this little glass figurine at a yard sale for 25 cents. When I flipped the item over and saw the red Occupied Japan logo, I got extremely excited and bought it on the spot. I took it over the shop and sold it for $45. The shop owner wouldn't go any higher, but hey, I made $44.75 of a quick purchase, so I wasn't too worried. The figure was actually worth about $125. Either way, I made money, and that figure is still sitting in his shop for sale at $125. Not a pawn shop, but GameStop. Dude rolled in with hundreds of bootleg games and a bunch of modded consoles. He couldn't fathom why I wouldn't take them. I'm a pawnbroker. Somebody brought in their dead grandmother's gold tooth, plucked from her ashes, with the tooth still in it. We told her that the tooth had to be separated from the gold for us to weigh it. They desecrated their loved one's remains for less than $2. A guy literally brought in an RPG. He was doing yard work for this old lady whose husband had passed. She gave it to him for doing some yard work, not realizing it was live and active. The guy was career military, and after the bomb squad came and disabled it, they went to her house and found a trove of similarly very illegal military grade weapons. I took an old $10 bill into a dealer to see how much it was worth. Don't recall the year, but it was old. Guy says, $10. Showed me what a bill would have to be like. Spent 30 minutes in his store with him looking at rare money. A good friend of mine owns a pawn shop in Florida. He once bought a collectible book of state quarters for less than face value of the coins. The customer wasn't bright enough to pop the quarters out of the book and spend them. My buddy's ability to keep a straight face in those situations and make the customer feel like he's getting a deal provides me endless entertainment. A friend's uncle allowed us to shadow him for a day at his pawn shop. A guy walked in with a metal lockbox and said he had something worth billions. He opened the lockbox and there were wood chips in it and the smell of spray paint. He claimed they were leftovers of the cross Jesus was crucified on. He is descended from an ancient and noble line of knights who took oaths to protect the cross. He wanted $2,000 for the lockbox and wood chips. I don't work in a pawn shop, but I bought my first guitar in one. The big defense contractor in my town laid off over 10,000 people overnight, and the contagion spread. I was looking for my first guitar, and I'm cheap. After checking the music stores, I hit up the pawn shops near work. While I'm looking, this clean-cut guy in his early 30s comes in trying to pawn his guitar, hard case, and effects. Since the shop had a bunch, they offered him crap, evidently, and he left. He was almost crying, saying he got laid off and had to pay some bills. I followed him out and asked him what he wanted for it. He said $100, and I took it. I also gave him my phone number and said he could buy it back when he got back on his feet. I never heard from him. I'm looking at it now, unplayed for months. I hope everything worked out for him. I worked in a jewelry store during the peak of the everybody buys gold and diamonds phase. A group of kids comes in with a ring they found in the parking lot. It's an obvious CZ, which I tell the ringleader, heh, as soon as he hands it to me. One of the others demands, a touch annoyed, how do you know? In one of those excellent to rare moments of perfect reaction, I asked, why'd you bring it to me? Because you're a jeweler. Oh. As a worker in the ghetto, I get grills and gold teeth almost daily, straight from the mouth, and then they get mad when I can't accept it and throw a fit. Every employee wears panic buttons to call the cops immediately if something happens as well. I may be late to this, but I worked at a pawn shop for about 6 years. I once had a customer walk up to the counter and slide a gold coin to me and say, I think this is gold, man. This particular customer reeked of bile and looked like he was high on everything possible. I looked at the coin and slid it back to him, and replied, I think it's a Chuck E. Cheese token, I can tell by the mouse on it. He just said, oh, and walked away. That was when I noticed he had shit his pants to the point it was almost all the way down his pant leg. I worked in a pawn shop for around 7 years or so. We had people trying to pawn fake jewelry all the time. The best part was when they didn't know it was fake. So many women left yelling about that cheap son of a bitch. I can't even remember half the stupid shit we turned away. There was one thing that we didn't turn away, and we should have though. And I love this story. One of the other employees took in what he described as a 24k gold baby bracelet. It was a cock ring. A golden cock ring. This employee was a bit of a know-it-all, and he liked to rub other people's mistakes in their faces. He eventually went on to become manager, and then district manager, and you can bet your ass I made sure that every employee under him knew about the baby bracelet. He never lived that down. Had a guy try selling me a gun. Before I could even nope him out of there. Shop is in New Jersey, we do not buy guns. He began to point the gun around with people all over the store, pulling the trigger. That guy was a special kind of guy. Fortunately the gun wasn't loaded, but still. I don't work at the pawn shop, but my friend does. People bring in dumb shit all the time, to get a few dollars for dope. It starts from a Candies box stolen from a shop next to the pawn shop, to plungers, rubber ducks, electronics, real and fake jewelry they thought was real, and ending on cars. I just have to say, I've only tried to sell something to a pawn shop once, some kind of CB radio setup and related components, and they offered me $20. When I told them that wasn't enough, they laughed at me and said I wouldn't get a better offer anywhere else. I ended up selling it on Craigslist for $300.